Everyone. You're looking live from generation to generation Cowboys and Sports Talks. I'm the host, DJ. I tell you what. And I have my dad, co-host, Cowboy Joe 64, aka Capricorn One.
I am your father. Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
And we're back with another one. So we have the Washington Commanders coming up, and that's pretty much what we're going to be discussing today. Well, I'll say this: we got the Washington Commanders coming up, and we'll be discussing the future as far as the most likely situations that can happen throughout the draft, the most likely situations that can happen throughout the coaching search, the most likely situations that can happen with player acquisition, player moves. Like for instance, I think that Tyler Guyton should be moved to right tackle, and they should cut Terrence Steele. A few things like that. I think that Wanye and Bell should be playing, even though Bell just had surgery. I think that Wanye and Bell should be our safeties next year, and Malik Hooker and what's my guy name?
Donovan Wilson.
Dono should be cut. I mean, he ain't gonna, if you cut both of them together, you're gonna save about $8-9 million total. But that's what we're gonna be talking about today. And so I know my dad has a lot of perspective and a lot of things to say about that. So I want to say what's up to the people and kind of outline what we're going to be discussing today.
So what's up to the people? And you might have to kind of carry the show because I'm kind of doing some technical issues over here. So I sound good so far?
Yeah, you sound good so far. You're not glitching or anything.
So the Washington Commanders, and we know them as the Redskins, which is not a kosher thing to say these days, but that's kind of what we grew up with, the Redskins. So it's gonna be a rivalry game again, kind of like the Philadelphia game. The first half of that Philly game was good because it's a division rivalry, so you're going to get competitive play. So when we go up there, and it's going to be a lot of Cowboy fans there, so I expect it to be a competitive game. I think they are a little overrated. Jaden Daniels is kind of coming back down to earth. They've been having a problem stopping the run, so Dan Quinn still hasn't got that resolved. They've been kind of getting blown off the line. Their secondary is kind of suspect, and their best receiver, Terry McLaurin, they've been having some problems getting him the ball. So with that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a competitive game.
Yeah, I think that, I haven't really watched them. I mean, I watched them last week, but I mean, really, they just from what I hear, I mean, and then they have so many of our older players that went with Dan Quinn. It's they remind me of how we were, last year and the year before. And they're a high flying team. They're flying around. Their offense is scoring a lot of points, but their defense is not efficient. It's not really they're good at rushing the passer. I'll put it like that. But they're really not. They're not good at stopping the run. They're not good at their secondary is questionable. And I'm trying to figure out. So what was all the Bobby Wagner hype about? Now they went out and they got Bobby Wagner, and everybody been talking about Bobby Wagner's been having a Pro Bowl type season. So what is he doing? He ain't stopping the run? Because I mean that's what you sign linebackers for, right? I mean, and I know he ain't doing nothing in coverage because Bobby Wagner last year, we was killing him in coverage when we played them. Where did he play last year? I think he played for Seattle. We was working them. So in coverage, and Bobby Wagner looked lost. So what is he doing? And then also, I want to throw this out there for Cowboy Nation because there's a misconception going around that Dan Quinn left And when he left, our defensive mindset left with him, and our takeaways and stuff left with him. We have 9 takeaways. They have 10. So they're not taking the ball away either. Not like they was when he was here. So what that tells me is that it's not Dan Quinn that generates the takeaways. It's the players that are ball hawks that generate takeaways. And we have those on our team. We have Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs. And those are the guys that take the ball away. Those are the two leading cornerbacks. They both have records as far as pick sixes and interceptions in a year, back to back. And both of them are coming off of injuries. Trayvon is not really, this is his first year off of injury. If you're playing corner, type of injury he had, it's going to take you a while to get back to full speed. And he's been doing okay. Deron Bland, he didn't mess around and miss the whole season. So, and he's being smart because I think that he's ready to go, but he's really being smart and just taking his time and not coming back, not rushing back, because that injury is an injury that if you're not careful, if it doesn't heal right, or if you re-injure it, you can really, really hurt yourself and be out longer than you intended to be. So those are the reasons why we don't have as many takeaways as we did last year, in my opinion, because Dan Quinn's defense only has 10 takeaways. Now the difference, the big difference is that they have like single digit giveaways, and we have like double digit giveaways. They might have like 5 or 6, and we have like 20. It's something like that. So that's the difference. Man. We don't have the takeaways, but they don't either. But they don't give the ball away, and we do. We turn the ball over, like, you know, like we have like 20, they have like 5 or something like that. So that's the difference.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that takeaway stat. They got 10 and we got 9. That's a very interesting stat. I think you're right. You know, Bland being out, and you know, I think if they had played 1 year a little bit more, played Izzy a little bit more, you know, we might be on the better side of that. Bland being out is a big deal. I kind of hope they still not saying that he's going to play on Sunday. I'm kind of hoping that he doesn't, that he does sit out, and they just put him on injury reserve. But so yeah, it's going to be interesting what's going to happen with the division teams. We played the Giants on Thanksgiving. We saw what they did with Daniel Jones, which was really interesting. So what do you think about that?
I don't like them for that. I think that was very disrespectful. And this is a business. I get it. But at the same time, it's just like, that's just kind of classless, in my opinion. It's just like Daniel Jones, you know, first of all, y'all shouldn't have drafted him when y'all did where y'all did, number one. But for y'all to just, you know, cut the man like that, I hope that he goes somewhere else and has it and actually plays and has a turnaround. That's what I hope. You know, I was thinking that maybe, you know, he's not a backup. So I think that he's gonna go somewhere like Minnesota or Carolina or somewhere that needs a veteran receiver to give their rookie receiver. I mean, it needs a veteran quarterback to give their rookie quarterback some competition and some, I don't want to call it guidance, but like knowing how his career has not really been that good. He can tell a rookie quarterback what not to do for sure, and make a little money at the same time being on the roster. But the Giants, I tell you what though, the Giants not playing. Now, I don't respect what they did. I don't like what they did. I don't like what they did with Saquon as far as shipping him to a division rival. That wasn't the smartest thing to do. I don't think that wasn't sound. They could have sent him anywhere else. but they just let him go to the Eagles. It's just kind of like, okay, well, anyways, with that, I'll tell you this though: the Giants, they're rebuilding their franchise. They're rebuilding their team, and how they're going about doing it is subjective. So, but what they're doing is they're rebuilding their team. That's what they're doing. And so when they draft Shador or Cam and pair him with Malik Neighbors and the other receiver from Tennessee and this running back they got, when they draft the lineman and they get their defense squared away, they also said that Brian Daboll is coming back for sure, I think.
Wow,
So
really?
I think so. Yeah, I think I seen that. And I could be wrong, but if he comes back, if Brian Daboll don't come back, and they get somebody like Ben Johnson or Bill Belichick, the old NFC East is back. That's what I got to say about that. The old NFC East is back, and the Cowboys are no longer going to be the team that's miles and miles ahead of the other teams. You know, typically it's the Eagles that give us competition for the last, decade or so. I guess you could say 5 or 6 years. You know, the Giants and the Redskins and the Commanders, they haven't really been, they really haven't been that no contenders. You know, they think the Giants made the playoffs, I think a year and a half ago. If I'm not mistaken, Washington is the team that they haven't won a Super Bowl in what, 30 years or something like that?
It's probably longer than that. You have to Google it. So there were 3 teams in the last 28 years that had made an NFC Championship game. So it was Dallas, Washington, and Detroit. And Detroit got off the list last year. So them winning a Super Bowl is probably, man, the last time they won one. So we won our first one with Jimmy in '92. The last time they won a Super Bowl is probably going to be 1989 or 90, if I had to guess.
That's crazy. So, yeah. So so the NFC East, NFC least is going to be an NFC beast. It's going to turn around, and Jerry and Steven and Will McClay, if he's even here next year, they need to get their heads out of the sand, and they really got one shot. I mean, because when you do things this way and you screw up this bad, and it's in everyone's face, and you're already a magnified franchise, they really have one chance at this. Because if they make a mistake, any mistake is going to be magnified times 5. You make a mistake in the draft, it's going to be everybody going to be talking about it. You make a mistake, you already made a mistake in signing Dak the way you did, and that's coming back to bite you. You made a mistake when you drafted the way you did last year and the year before, coming back to get you. You just made a mistake a couple weeks ago by trading a 4th round pick for Jonathan Mingo. And you have Steven on the radio today talking about he said that he would do the Trey Lance and Jonathan Mingo trades again if he could, because they were smart football moves. He said that out of his own mouth. He said that. He said you're still not going to get that kind of talent in the 4th round from Trey Lance, and you're not going to get that kind of talent in the 4th round for Jonathan Mingo. Those type of players in the 4th round don't exist, is what he said. So I don't know if he's just like, if he has dementia or Alzheimer's or something. I don't know, but he
don't have dementia. He's clear-headed as clear-headed can be. This is just what they do. So when they come on these shows, that's why I keep saying you should not listen to what they're saying. Just look at what they do. So it's almost like Captain Obvious. When they ask them these questions, it's like, what do you expect them to say? So he's going to always give you the Captain Obvious answer. So Them saying that Trey Lance and Mingo were worth it, it's a Captain Obvious response. So, like, what do you expect them to say? Now, the scary thing is they think that they really believe what they're saying. So that's the scary thing. So, one of the things I've been kind of going back and forth with people that I follow on Twitter this week, some of the content creators and people that hang out in the Twitter space. Um, and we got to start talking about going over to Blue Sky, I think is what it's called. We got to do something over there and put our content over there. But I've been telling people that, man, if they end up somewhere drafting between 4 and 8, which I think is a possibility, for them to trade down is very risky because the person that was on the ticket today, on the fan, saying that Trey Mingo and Trey Lance were good trades, that's going to be the person that's sitting at number 6 in the draft and trade down. So what does that mean? Every time they do a trade, they get fleeced. If you went and interviewed NFL GMs and asked them in the last 10 years or so, who's the worst trading team in the NFL, it's going to be Dallas because the Amari Cooper trade was ridiculously bad. The Trey Lance trade was worse, and the Mingo trade was worse. So if we trade down from 6, the person that's going to be trading down is the person that thinks the Trey Lance was still a good deal. And when you look at our drafts recently, the players that we drafted, that's going to be the person that's, if you trade down and pick up extra picks, is going to be doing the trading. What we're going to do when we get ready for the draft, we're going to do our draft shows. We're going to have a realistic board, or put it like this. We're going to have a board that probably matches the Ravens board, the Chiefs board, the Eagles, the Bills. We're going to try to put something together that will kind of match what they have. And you can do your own research, and everybody's doing the draft these days. You can pretty much just kind of put a board together that's going to match what NFL scouts and GMs have. But then we're going to do a Dallas Cowboys board, and on that board we're just going to have goofy stuff on there. And we're going to just say, in this round they should pick this player, but we're going to come over to this Cowboy board and we're going to have somebody in that spot that shouldn't be there. And that's kind of what they do. So hopefully they turn it around and don't do that. We're going to talk about some ways they can turn it around, but we're going to have to wait and see, because I think if they don't stay there and draft a blue chip player and trade down, and understand too, if you're picking 6th and you trade down to probably 8 or 9, it's probably not too bad. Or if you're at 5 and you trade down to 8 or 7, that's okay. But the scary thing with them, they could be drafting at 6 and they'll trade down to 17, and there you go. So
I also want to point out, people, that he said that this is good. Trey Lance, it's very possible that Trey Lance is going to be not going to be on this team next year.
He said that?
Huh?
He said it's a chance that Trey Lance won't be on the team next year?
No, I'm saying that.
Oh.
So it's very possible that Trey Lance in the next few years is not on this roster, and he would have left here. Now, what he did say was that they didn't know whether Dak was going to be signed long term or not. And so that's why they did what they did with Trey Lance, because they didn't know if Dak was going to be here or not. And then he said, now that we've signed Dak long term, it's kind of null and void of what we're going to be able to get out of Trey Lance, because Dak's here long term. So what that told me is that they don't care nothing about Shedeur and Cam being in the draft.
But wait a minute, but stop right there. So again, Captain Obvious, he has to know that when he said that, there's like literally thousands of people that know that really wasn't a smart way to do your team. You don't that doesn't make any sense.
And then
So
also another 10,000 people that understand and say, well, okay, Steven, even if that was the case, he's not playing better than Cooper Rush. So how does that?
yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's your third quarterback. So you're are you saying that you did that as to cover yourself on Dak? That doesn't make any sense.
They wouldn't have covered you on that,
Mm-mm.
Steven. So again, it's just like this guy is just delusional. So it
Well,
then it,
well, I'm gonna push back on that. I'm gonna keep saying he's not delusional. He's what people got to understand with Steven and Jerry. They're not. They don't have dementia. They don't have nothing. This is what they believe. What they're doing is the way to run a team.
okay. So the best quote for them, or the best term for them, is that they live in an alternate reality. Like
Yeah,
in their world, that's a real thing, but in the actual on Earth, that makes no sense.
I'm gonna push.
So
I'm gonna push back on even that. I don't even think they live in an alternate world, or whatever you said. It's just they don't really do a good job. They're just not good at what they do.
they're just not smart. They're just dumb.
They're not dumb. They're just not good.
They're just bad. They're not good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
They
like
don't they don't make good decisions.
it's like in the NFL, we have a long history of the NFL. You just know in the history of the NFL, the Detroit Lions have always been a bad team. They didn't have delusional people in their front office or people that had dementia or whatever we're calling it. They
Hmm.
were just not good at hiring coaches. They were not good at drafting.
Yeah.
That's Dallas. For 28 years, they haven't done a good job of hiring coaches. They haven't done a good job of drafting. In Detroit, they always drafted high. They always had
Hmm.
high picks.
Kind of like Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder is just like, my
Yeah.
God, man.
So Washington, the same thing. Washington, the Redskins and the Commanders, they had good picks. They just didn't
Yeah.
have good people in the front office. They had really bad coaches. They had, for a stretch, they had John Gruden's brother as their head coach. It's like, so when you hire a coach and he gets fired and he never gets another job, you were not, you didn't have dementia. You just did a poor job of hiring. And that's what's happening here.
Yeah, and when you have a whole staff, you have 30 something coaches on your staff, and none of them are on any list to get interviewed for upcoming positions.
Yeah.
You just dropped the ball.
If you had ran that same list during the time that Wade Phillips was a head coach or when Jason Garrett was a head coach, they would not have been on any of those lists. When jobs came open, the hot coaches in the offseason, people that were looking at someone to hire. When Bill Parcells was a coach, there were several teams that would have, if he had just came free, they would have looked at Parcells. When Jimmy was a coach, several teams wanted Jimmy. Uh, Nobody wanted Chan Gailey or Jason Garrett or Wade Phillips. Nobody hired Scott Linehan. I think is Marinelli still in the league? I don't even think he is.
No, I don't think so. These are with the Raiders.
Yeah. So, and it's going to be interesting to see this staff here when McCarthy leaves. It's going to be interesting to see who on this staff gets another job. I think what's our cornerback coach? I'm losing my train of
Harris.
thought. I think Al Harris will get a job. And But some of our other coaches, Zim might be one and done. Uh, I mean, honestly, some of the other coaches that we have, Mike Solari, he's done. Uh,
Yeah, he's toast.
but so that's kind of what's happening with the Cowboys. It's not that they ain't like people was putting out the other day that Jerry was losing his mental faculties or whatever. Jerry is fine. I mean, Jerry today, I can guarantee you today, Jerry did some great deals business wise with his businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Next week he gonna do some better deals, but they're just not good at the football thing. That's what people need to understand. That's what's happening
Mm-hmm.
here. So going back to where I started, that's why I don't feel comfortable with them trading down. Now, a clock is always right twice a day, so it's a possibility that they could trade down and pick up some extra picks and they have had some good drafts over the years, but it's just here lately. I don't think what year was Taco and Tristan Hill drafted?
The year that TJ Watt and TJ Watt and I don't even know who the other.
And
Oh, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett was drafted in that same year.
and then they'll say that they've drafted well, but what they're talking about CD, Micah. Um, they found Deron Bland in the 5th round. I just really can't. When I get past CD, Micah, and Deron Bland, I'm not finding good players that they drafted. Who am I missing?
Nobody.
It's not Damone Clark. It's not Steele. Tyler Smith. They nailed it on that one. I think Cooper Beebe is going to end up being good. They might have to move him to guard. I think he's a good player. Of course,
Yeah.
Overshawn. But
Mm-hmm.
so I was listening to Boss Cowboy. Shout out to Boss. I think on Tuesday night, there was a guy that called into his show, and he read a list of all of the players that the Cowboys have drafted from like the 1st round to the 4th round. And I mean, it was like the dude, he just nailed it. He just ran off about 20 or 30 names of players that they've drafted. And these were high picks. Nashawn Wright. Uh, they drafted Fihoko in the 23 draft. He was never active for a game. He was a 4th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So
Vilimi.
Wilemi Fihoko, they drafted him in the 4th round. He never was active for a game. Not one game.
What about remember that edge rusher that they had that they had drafted? Not the edge rusher. He was a 3-4 linebacker outside, and he was light skinned, and he was like we thought he was gonna be good.
That he never played.
He never played.
So
I mean, they and then they do this, man. This is what they do, man. It's just like and this is and this that's why and also another thing that they do is this is what they do. They do give their coaches a lot of leeway and a lot of room, but
they do.
but they do it in a narcissistic way. It's almost like, yeah, they give Mike McCarthy room to build his fill out. They gave him room to do things and build out his team, but they tell him at the same time, but Kellen's going to call plays. Okay, at the same time, Kellen's going to be here, and at the same time, So
let me push back on that. So this is my pushback show. Here's what they do. So they will hire a vulnerable coach. So they hire coaches that, like for example, Mike McCarthy. So Mike McCarthy was out of coaching for a couple of years. He was sitting on his couch. He needed a job. He was trying to get back in the league. So when they hire coaches like that, that's how you're able to slide in. Yeah. So that's how you're able to slide in. We're gonna hire you. You got this great job. You're gonna be the new Cowboys coach. And by the way, we got this guy over here, Kellen Moore. It would be like really cool. You might want to just check him out and let him call plays. So that's how they do that when they hire coaches like that. But if they just hire a coach that is in demand, someone that has a lot of gravitas, you don't pull that kind of move on that kind of coach.
Well, first of all, a coach like that not gonna let you pull no kind of move like that.
Yeah. So
Ben Johnson gonna come up in here if he do, which I don't think he's gonna interview. But if he does interview, it won't be nobody. There will not be anyone on this staff that's on his staff. No, nobody. And so, not even Al Harris probably. So, Ben Johnson probably not gonna interview. I don't think he will. But he should be the number one candidate to interview. And I just hope the 49ers get rid of Shanahan, because that's who I really that's my other. I want Shanahan, I want Ben Johnson or Shanahan, and I want Robert Saleh or Brian Flores.
There's some people been talking this week about the Cowboys liking Saleh.
Well, they gonna like him as a head coach.
But no, they was talking about as a coordinator. What I saw.
That would be
Now,
great.
now Brian Flores is not going to be available, so he's not
He
going
gonna
to
be a
be.
head coach somewhere.
I don't think he will.
So he gonna stay with Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that that thing with him, he's got like a lawsuit against the league, so it's always going to be
Yeah.
a little bit of that that's kind of holding him back. But I just don't think he's a. It's just some coaches that are not head coaches to me.
Al
And,
Harris.
and Al Harris, at some point, he probably will be a good head coach. But Brian Flores, Steve Spagnuolo right now is the best in the game, defensive coordinator. He was a head coach of the Rams. He didn't do very well. So
But see, my whole thing, my pushback on that is when you hire a head coach, if they're good at what they do, then just let them do what they do. Like for instance, Spagnuolo could come in here and be our head coach and just be a defensive coordinator, and the actual offensive coordinator will call the offense, and that would just be like what it is. You have some coaches that are stand around coaches like McCarthy, where you really can't point at what they do good. Like Mike McCarthy, he calls the plays, but for the first few years, he didn't. He was just that guy that didn't really, And then you have some of those coaches that's in your face, like Dan Campbell, and like they actually, And then you have like the coordinator coaches, Ben Johnson. He's a coordinator coach. You have. So I mean, that's all I'm saying. But I just want, and then Belichick, the whole Belichick thing. I think that I hope that they can interview Belichick, and I hope because if they interview Belichick, then I think that that's gonna be it. I don't think that they let him get out.
well, what we've been saying, like your list you uncovered earlier this week, what they really should do, the Cowboys need a sea change on the way they operate their franchise. They need to, what they really should do, and they're not going to do it. We hope that they will. They should just totally just get outside of their comfort zone. What they need to do, they just need to look at what the Ravens do, the Chiefs do, the Eagles, the 49ers, and just do best practices. That's what we called it back in the business world back in the day when I was in
Hmm.
management. And just that's what you do. And then, so with that being said, you interview 10 people for head coach and you hire the best candidate. And then your head coach, you're going to interview 10 defensive coordinators and 10 offensive coordinators and you hire the best one. That's what they haven't done. And so, sometimes the what's happening on the ground kind of dictates that now. So what I just said right there, that's really the best way to do it. However, if Kyle Shanahan all of a sudden just shows up on the market, that's when you can just say, I'm gonna step out of this process and hire their coach. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to just kind of, the off season comes around and they do what they've been doing. They bring in two guys. They have one come out to their house and have a few drinks, and you hire them. If they just say, and if they know right now that they're going to hire Mike Vrabel, they're making a big mistake.
Yeah, and see, as a millennial, and I'm giving millennials a lot of credit for a lot of things, and like what one of my mentors told me, I'd say probably about like 5 years ago, and it really helped me out a lot. He was like, you just want to have, like you said, the best practices, best business practices, or whatever. We call it the right behaviors. You just
Mm-hmm.
have the right behaviors. You know what I mean? Like you come to work on time. If you don't understand something, you ask a question. Always just do the right behaviors. You just be polite. You dress right. It's just those little things. Just always remember to have the right behaviors. You have the right behaviors. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna progress, and you're gonna elevate, because you're gonna have some people that's not doing the right behaviors.
Yeah.
So you have, when you do the right behaviors as a GM, as a general manager, when you're drafting high, you just take the best player available. You just draft, that's just the right behavior. When you have coaches to hire, you just look on your list and you says who is, what does everyone else say? Who does everyone else say the best coaching candidates are? And why are they the best coaching candidates? Who moves the ball up and down the field? Who has a good defense? Who has a good resume? And you interview those 10 guys, 15 guys, and you just
Mhm.
literally just, it's a long process. You literally just pick the best one. That's just the right practice. I mean, that's just the right behaviors. When it
And the
comes,
yeah, and so in the piggyback on what you're saying, not to cut you off, what you also want to do is you want to just look at who's had success. So you would
yeah,
just say what have been the best offenses in the league the last several years. What has been the best defense? What scheme is that?
yeah,
Look at who's been in the NFC and AFC championship game. What organizations? What system? What team? What the
hmm
Cowboys have done when they hired Wade Phillips, he was not the best at anything. He was on no list. He was not doing anything anywhere that was the best. Jason Garrett, he had absolutely nothing. There was nothing that he had done. He had been an assistant on different teams, but he was never a great coach at anything. He was at one point he was on the New York Giants staff. He was just a guy. He was on the Miami Dolphins when Nick Saban came into the NFL. Jason Garrett was on his staff, but nobody you can't. I couldn't even tell you what he did.
he was a backup for crying out loud.
But no, he was a coach.
No, I'm talking about backup as a player.
Oh well, yeah. But and then Mike McCarthy. When they hired Mike McCarthy, he wasn't working anywhere, so he hadn't really done anything in years. So the Bills, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Eagles, that's just not what they do. Now, you can look at some of the people that they've hired that haven't not worked out. The jury is still out on Sirianni. But I will say this about Sirianni. They went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So
I mean,
that's
Sirianni, I mean, yeah, the jury's still out because he has some successful season, but he has some. That's
yeah.
what's saving him because he has some bad seasons too.
But with that being said, he went to the Super Bowl. You had a coach, Jason Garrett, that was here for 10 years. He never made it to the NFC Championship game.
Dude, he never won a second playoff game.
Exactly. So, that's the kind of thing they need to do. So they just somebody needs to come in and just tell them, you need to look at what's successful and what are these other organizations doing to have success, and they just
That
need to
that's
go
why
out and do that.
that's why I think it's imperative, and it's going to tell you a lot about when they make this coaching hire. Because if they make this coaching hire, I say, is it almost a guarantee that they're going to make the coaching hire before the draft, or is it just like,
No, it'll
or
it'll have to be before the draft. It'll be sometime between the Super Bowl and I probably say the first week of March. So, and that'll give them plenty of time to interview everybody. But like I said, the only thing that would change that
Mhm.
is if Kyle Shanahan gets out there and that some other teams want to hire him,
Mhm.
if you really want him. So some of the time the marketplace will kind of
Dictate that.
dictate what you have. But if it's just a regular hiring period and you have all of these coaches out there interviewing, then you just take your time and interview and you hire the best coach.
Now,
And
what would they now? What would we say if he interviewed Ben Johnson and another coach, and then just hired Ben Johnson?
it's still not a good practice, but you know that'll I don't really think they'll get a lot of criticism, but again, that's not the best way to do it, and that's the market too, because Ben Johnson might literally get out there and decide like real quick, hey, I'm gonna interview with these teams, and he's kind of calling his own shot from what we're hearing.
Now, my thing is like, okay, how are we going to get? Are we going to get over the hump of Jerry paying the coach? Because it seems to me that the good coaches make good salaries, and I just don't know if I can just see Jerry paying
Hey,
money to a
so
coach.
I was gonna tell you something because I was listening to Vach and Brian Browder. Shout out to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they went through the coaching salaries, and it wasn't as wide as I thought when they went through it. So McCarthy is very much on the low end. There were some other coaches that were down there with McCarthy that was surprised, but there was a lot of coaches making 7, 8, 9 million. So that was kind of encouraging because I think Jerry he can go from 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. He can probably do that.
Well,
Um,
Ben Johnson won 15.
he won 15. Like I said, he's calling his own shot. So Now, Mike Vrabel, he's probably going to come in and he'll be okay with 6 or 7. Kellen, that's what he's going to do. Mike McCarthy, there's some talk this week about McCarthy coming back. I can tell you right now why that's probably not going to happen is because Mike McCarthy hired a new agent. And so what Mike McCarthy is going to tell Jerry, if you want to hire me, first of all, I'm getting a 3 or 4 year deal, but I'm going from being the 32nd highest paid to probably in the middle somewhere. So he's gonna want to go from like 4.5 to 8 or 9.
I think Jerry is gonna do that.
We'll keep McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think that'll be a good idea, but
No, I don't think it's a
again,
good idea.
that's typical for what they do.
Right. And I can just see him saying it now. Like last year was a one off for everybody. We're gonna do it one more time.
No, the reason they need to change McCarthy is because it's like all of the content creators been talking about. I have a lot of respect for the content creators. Vach, Will Steele, Brian Broaddus. Everybody is pretty consistently saying the same thing. That Mike McCarthy, his schemes are very outdated. They're antiquated. The running schemes are ridiculously bad. The routes are really bad. Just his concepts of offense is just totally outdated, and you just won't be doing your franchise any good just to move forward with him. You would have thought he would have been Andy Reid, but he's just not.
And then on top of that, I heard Broadus, shout out to Broadus. I heard Broadus say something yesterday that really, to me, I've been saying this for the longest, for like since the Garrett days, because to me, this is what makes a good coach. I don't care about, I get the scheme and all of that, but to me, what makes the best coach and what makes a good coach and what McCarthy does not do, what Kellen does not do, what Garrett did not do. Garrett might have did a little bit. Garrett didn't do it. Tony Romo did, but Garrett didn't. Linehan, they didn't do it. Tony Romo did. So what makes a good coach is when you can identify a defense and how and know where their weakness is and know how to attack their weakness and then know how to and then know have the maturity or the longevity or whatever in your career to know that, okay, this is how you attack this defense. This is the weakness. This is how you attack it. And when they adjust, this is what they're gonna adjust to. When they adjust, this is what they're gonna adjust to. And when they adjust to this, I'm gonna attack them this way. It's just like a chess game. So when I'm playing Madden and I get someone that has a 4-3 defense, I immediately get on my phone and say, how do you attack a 4-3 defense? And it'll tell you right there how to attack a 4-3 defense. It'll tell you why. It'll tell you this, attack them this way, attack them this way. And then it'll say, how do you, as a 4-3 defense, how do you stop an offense from attacking you? And so then you see what they're going to do to adjust. And then whatever they do to adjust, you type that in. Well, how do you attack cover 2? And when they adjust, and then it'll tell you the quarterback getting out of the pocket and using his legs is almost fail safe. So, and when you know these things in your mind already as an offensive coordinator or as a head coach or as a quarterback, when you know these things, like Tony Romo knew this is the defense that they running. You gonna be open right there on this play. The next play we gonna run, they gonna adjust after the half. When they adjust, they gonna shift this way, and you're gonna be open over there. And it's just like that. The coordinators would do that. And so when the coordinator knows that, they know how to attack the defense. With McCarthy, with Kellen, they don't know how to attack. They don't have a plan of attack. Like, okay, this defense does this well, but this is their weakness, and we're going to exploit it. It's just like, you remember when I think we went up against Tack McKinley or somebody when we was with Atlanta, when we played Atlanta, and I think it was whoever was on the outside. It might have been Terrence Steele or whoever it was. It was just like
Chaz Green.
They was just like, this guy is weak. We're gonna just expose him the whole game until they stop it. That's just it. And it's just like when we played the Rams in the playoffs that year. They can't. They this defense that they run, they play their gaps and they overextend. So how we're gonna attack them is misdirection.
Yeah.
When we use misdirection, we're gonna do it until they stop it. They never stop it. So we don't do that as a team. Like
Yeah.
we don't do that. You know what I mean? We
So
just call plays and just
I,
hope for the best.
so I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, some coaches, they're just not good coaches. They don't have good schemes. Like I said, that's why Washington and Detroit for years they just didn't have a good team. You know, you can go and pick out a lot of the teams in the league that didn't have a lot of success over the years. And so my thing with McCarthy, with Garrett, at some point you just gotta have results. You gotta be able to just win games, and you have to have a lot of that. You gotta be creative. You gotta make adjustments, but you also just have to have like a good foundation of plays. It's like almost when I worked in the business world, a company that I work for, we would run a lot of reports,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew what we were trying to do, and then we would have people run reports for us. And so sometimes I would get a report and I would just look at it.
Mm-hmm. And say this is not.
Yeah, and what I would do is I would say, who actually ran this? And so
Mm-hmm.
I would pick up the phone and I would just call around to different engineers and just find out who ran the report. And then what I would find out is the person that ran report, they just put some junk in there just to do it or whatever the case may be, or they didn't really know what they was doing. So with McCarthy, it's not a whole lot about what the defense is doing. If you're just dealing from a foundation of what your offense is, it's just not a good offense. It doesn't have good run scheme and good routes. I don't even know if his adjustments are going to be good. And then number two, Mike McCarthy, what's happening with him? He doesn't really want to make the adjustments. That's what Garrett did. They were like in that game you're talking about. They just really felt like what they had put in place, what they had prepared for, that offensive tackle should be able to block that guy, and
line
that's
line up
uh,
and beat the man in front of you.
yeah. So at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, you just can't get around poor coaching and poor schemes. It's all going to come out in the end, and I think that's what's happening with McCarthy. You know, when he was in Green Bay, that was his criticism. Then they were telling him, your offense. Aaron Rodgers was like, dude, your offense is behind. It's not innovative. You're not doing things that you need to do to get ahead, to give us a chance to win games. And you know, you can make adjustments, but what are you making adjustments with? And so I think that's the problem with him. And then you just look at some of the other aspects of the team. The special teams is not good. Uh, you know, you look at what he did with Mike Nolan. So I just think at the end of the day, you know, coaching matters, and I just don't think he's a good coach. And so
Like
if Jet,
personnel wise, like how do you have a game plan where you run out Turpin and Deuce as your starting running backs? I mean, like this, like that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and what we said before, that wasn't Jerry and Steven, that was him. And he did it last year. He did come back and turn it around, and you can obviously say he made some adjustments. He did things better, but what doesn't make any sense, he turned it around last year, and then this year, inexplicably, he's going backwards. And so
And then I don't want to give him any kind of false credit because we have to notice, we have to realize that, like I said earlier in this series of episodes this season, all of that stuff that you're doing, it might work against some of these teams during the season. But when you get to them haymakers, when you get to them big boys in the playoffs, it's not gonna work. Dude, that it
yeah,
doesn't. It never does. It's just like what he did with Malik Davis last year. It's just like Malik Davis is having a good game. He's running up and down the field, and then in the last last series when we needed 10 yards to get us in field goal range or whatever we needed it for to run some time off. I think we needed it to run some time off the clock.
Yeah,
And
that was a Green Bay game. That was Kellen, but he was in on it. Yeah,
it's just
but
like it's like what it's like you don't we didn't have that wasn't a coaching lost us that game. It's just like so many games that we can point to where we can just say the reason why we lost that game was because of coaching.
and that's the thing that we've been kind of going round and around with you and I, me and your uncle. You guys are just saying that Jerry hasn't been a Jerry. No good coach wants to come here because of Jerry and Steven and because of the money. My side of the argument is they just do a poor job of hiring coaches. He hasn't hired. He's had multiple opportunities. He should have been hiring Sean McVay. He should have been hiring Kyle Shanahan.
Why
He
didn't
could have.
he interview them?
He could have hired Dan Campbell. He could have hired Todd Bowles. He could have hired uh, what's Denver coach Sean Payton.
On our side of the coin, why didn't they come in for an interview?
Well, they would have interviewed, but he didn't ask for the interview. When he hired Garrett, when he hired Wade Phillips, there were better coaches available. He didn't even try because
Listen, there's a rumor right now that says Ben Johnson is not even going to come here, not even going to waste his time interviewing with Jerry. Why do you think that is?
well, it's because that's the part where you and your uncle or Eric, coaches like that, they don't want to interview for the job. Look, it would not shock me at all if when this hiring window opens for these coaches, if they have a lot of coaches saying they're not interviewing with Jerry. Now, Vrabel probably will.
Yeah,
Kellen
yeah.
will.
To your point, a desperate coach will.
Yeah, somebody that ain't got a job and they're like it not in high demand, but you know, it's look, we're gonna find out if Ben Johnson wants to interview here. Bob Slowick. Everybody's assuming that Belichick is going to interview for this job. I would not be shocked if Belichick does an interview. We're gonna
Me
know pretty
neither.
quick. We're gonna know pretty quick. So you want to go ahead and wrap?
Yeah, and then what's scary about this about the interview process is that the teams that are picking in front of us, they're good franchises. And I can easily see coaches wanting to go to their franchises and coach more than coming here. Like the
Yeah.
Giants and the Jags. You can easily see
Well,
coaches wanting to go to the Jags and coach in Florida. I can easily see coaches want to go to New York and coach.
yeah. Well, Ben Johnson, he's going to interview with the Giants.
Yeah,
There's a
he is.
there's a very good possibility that the Giants will end up with Shador. My-
And it's a very good possibility that the Giants will pay Ben Johnson every penny of what he wants.
Yeah, and so if I had to guess right now, I think Shador is going to go to the Giants or the Raiders, and especially if they end up there at the top.
Who is
I,
the Raiders coach?
it's Antonio Pierce, the ex-Giants linebacker, and he's like year to year. He's not somebody that they're married to.
I wouldn't be
Uh,
surprised if they reach out to Dion and he says yes.
I think Deion's going to stay in college. I will say I don't think Ben Johnson would take that job. Um,
Oakland?
yeah, I don't think he would. Just that's kind of my thoughts. Um, and then Belichick, it's some history there with Jacksonville with the Giants coaches. So this is like way before your time. So when Bill Parcells was the coach of the Giants, they had won their 2 championships. His assistant coaches was Belichick. He had Tom Coughlin, Romeo Crennel, and all of them guys. So Tom Coughlin was like one of his main assistants when the Giants won their 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom Coughlin went to the Jaguars. They were expansion team at that time. Tom Coughlin went to the Jaguars. They were expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 years later, they were in the AFC Championship game. And then Tom Coughlin's time ran out in Jacksonville. They kind of had some rough years. Tom Coughlin came back to the Giants where he started.
They won again.
1-2 with them. So I set out to say this. It wouldn't shock me if Belichick goes to the Jaguars because what Tom Coughlin did there, and Belichick will be able to call his own shots. He'll be his own guy, and they have a quarterback. and they'll probably pay the Jaguars. They'll probably pay Belichick 20-25 million. They'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, so like with that being said, right there, you can pretty much cash that check that Belichick and Ben Johnson are both going to go to other teams. So with that being said, who does that leave us with? And then, and then not only now I know who it leaves us with, and I know how you would find your next guy because you would just have the best practices. You would just have the right behaviors. But are they going to do that though? That's the
That's
question.
that's what we're gonna find out. So the next 6 weeks is probably gonna determine where they go because what you're gonna see the next 6 weeks, starting on Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving game can be an embarrassment. What can happen on Thanksgiving? You could just see thousands of empty seats. Um, they lucky they playing the Giants because if they was playing anybody else, we would get smoked on Thanksgiving. And then the games after that, you just start seeing a lot of empty seats, uh, tickets just being sold for little or nothing. People at the games wearing bags on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing right there that can just really force them to really turn the page and do something, do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we're only gonna know when we know. We're not gonna know till the season is over. And then the other thing is, so it's gonna be like in stages. You'll see what the coaching search looks like, who wants to interview, and then in free agency, you're gonna know when free agency starts. See the way free agency is now in the NFL. I mean, it's fast and the furious. It's like every day, just people just being signed left and right, and not for a lot of money. So when free agency starts, if they're on vacation like they normally do, and they ain't really doing nothing, so we gonna kind of know pretty quick.
And I want you to pay attention to it. Shout your boy out that you sent me his Twitter, the guy that does the cap.
Oh, Outlaw Cowboy, oh,
Outlaw
he's
Cowboy.
terrific.
Shout out to Outlaw Cowboy, and shout out to Jeff Kavanaugh. You know what both of them said? Both of them said that this is a 2-year deal.
What's a 2-year deal?
The Cowboys not using no cap space. I mean, the Cowboys not using no cap. Not signing no free agency and having cap years to where they just don't do anything, don't sign anybody, and they just let the cap build itself. You know what I mean? Like how they did this year, like how they did, like how they actually went in and purposely not signed any free agents and let players with big contracts go that we needed to sign. They did that on purpose. Outlaw Cowboy and Jeff Kavanaugh said that the only way that this makes sense is if they do it for 2 years in a row.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's what they said. Both of them said that. I can
Well,
read the tweet right now. I can read the tweet. I can read the tweet where Jeff said it on the video, and Outlaw Cowboy said it on his Twitter. He said,
yeah,
so I mean that's what he said. And the only reason why I say that is because everything that they said, you can pretty much
that doesn't
lay.
really make any sense because you just paid Dak 60 million. Dak is not going to just sit here and get just pile up losses. You got Micah, you got CD. There ain't no way in Hades that CD, Micah, and Dak are going to be on a team where for the next 2 years you're just kind of out there. You're going 4-13 or 5-12. That's just not gonna. I don't see that.
Outlaw Cowboy said, well, before we wrap up, he said if the Cowboys stay in the top 10 of the draft, there's only 3 players that should be at the top of the list: Ted McMillan,
Yeah,
defensive tackle Mason Graham, and wide receiver Luke Burden. I totally agree. He said that you either take a top-notch offensive weapon to pair with CD or address the weakest position on your team. Now you're just
yeah,
drafting for need there, but I totally agree.
yeah. So we go. I don't see the Cowboys doing that for the next 2 years. Just kind of doing like a cap thing where they just.
Hey, this is the treat. He said, crazy to think about a 2025 roster without Zach Martin, Tank Lawrence, and who was number 97?
Oh, Diggy Zua.
And Odigizua. But it's looking more and more like the reality we're staring down the barrel of now. If you think the Cowboys won't be in a legitimate rebuilding phase over the next 2 seasons, you're absolutely wrong.
Well, that's different from saying they're not going to do anything with their cap for the next 2 years. They gonna be in a rebuilding. I mean, in the NFL, this is my thing, and people gonna learn this just listening to our show. When you got a franchise quarterback, when you got franchise players like Micah and CD, you're gonna just be in a reload. You're not gonna be rebuilding. You're gonna just be. There are two things. If you just draft good, that's part of it. And then if you just sign some free agents, you're just reloading. That's what I'm calling it. The rebuild thing is kind of tricky. Rebuild is when you don't have no quarterback at all. You got like just think of some teams out there right now. They don't really have a quarterback. They don't have a Micah. They don't have a CD. That's rebuilding.
Yeah.
I don't see Dallas. What Dallas is gonna do, they gonna draft and hopefully draft good players. And what they need to change is sign some free agents, and you're gonna be competitive.
You
That's
gotta
what.
sign free agents this year. I mean, they have
Yeah,
to. They can't. They can. They have to. And
yeah.
if they don't, we're gonna erupt more than we have this year because it
Well,
was pretty
we
crazy.
gonna erupt, and Micah, CD, and Dak are gonna erupt too. So look,
Yeah.
the Cowboys ain't gonna just sit back for the next 2 years, and even if they just do what they've been doing, like I said, a clock is right twice a day. So somebody,
Mhm.
if they trade down like we saying they shouldn't do, man, they could look up and hit on some players, but I mean we'll
CD,
see.
CD, CD, and Micah, Trayvon, and Dak.
Oh yeah, I forgot Trayvon. Yeah,
They are really, they're superstars. They throw their weight around too.
yeah. So they're not gonna be okay with Micah. He's what is this channel? What is this thing called?
Uh, on the coming off the edge or something like that.
Is it?
He's a president of Gridiron Bleacher Report.
It wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't put it past him. Micah might put out his own mock draft.
You don't think he is? He
You know,
definitely gonna put out his mock draft. He already doing that.
so the Cowboys ain't gonna be able to just sit out there and do stupid stuff when Micah got his own draft board going out there.
Man, Micah already got a draft board. Micah already calling out the players he want. He said that he want them to take the Penn State edge, number 11. That's who he want them to draft.
With what pick?
The first one.
Is he rated that high?
He the first edge off the board. Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. And see, Micah also said that, what's his name? He liked the pick. But Micah is just Micah. He's just another person with an opinion. I don't understand why everybody hating. He got his opinion. He got his
I do.
people that he like.
So shout out to Landlord and shout out to Henny the Moore. I'm on the same page with them. They are absolutely convinced that the Cowboys need to go skill players in this draft, and I agree. The Cowboys need receiver,
Yeah, I do. I
running
agree.
back. They need another tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't want to go into this draft and just pick for need and pass up good players. So, if you get to your pick and the best player is Michael's guy, okay, then pick him. But man, I sure hope that when they do pick, it's a receiver there. It's a running
Yeah.
back.
No,
Good
no
God.
doubt. If you're picking at the top 10, the BPA is going to be a position of need on this roster. If the
Yeah.
best player available might be a wide receiver, that's a position of need. The best player might be a defensive tackle. That's definitely a position of need.
And they
And
shouldn't
then
take a lineman. What they need to do, they need to change their scheme. That will help their lineman. They don't need to take another offensive lineman.
I don't know about that. I mean, I wouldn't take an offensive lineman, but if it's a defensive tackle from Michigan, there, I'll take them. One of them.
I think one of the Michigan guys, I think you're gonna be fine with them. The other one, I'm not
Mason
so
Graham and
sure.
Kenneth Graham, I think.
Yeah, one of them, whichever one is rated the highest,
Mason Graham.
he just jumps off the screen, and so you won't be
The
going.
best. He got the best swim move I ever seen.
Yeah, he's looking like an Aaron Donald. That's what he's looking like to me, a bigger Aaron Donald. So
Yeah,
you won't go wrong with him. But I'm hoping that we get we need a receiver, man.
You want to
I
get
mean,
Ted McMillan.
bad.
You
Yeah,
want to get Luke
I want Ted.
or Luther.
I like Luther.
He's a
Not
bad
as
boy.
good as Ted. Luther would be our one. I don't even know if he would be a 1B.
I don't know. Yeah, he would definitely be a 1B. There's some people got him going first.
Yeah. So
Over 10.
yeah, we got to take a skill player, and then you can just fill in the rest of your draft. And if they trade down, they just cannot miss. You cannot do a
Trade down and take
Mozzie
the
or a
offensive tackle from
Schoon.
Texas.
Yeah, I mean it's just, and they saying that from offensive line from Texas is gonna be a guard.
Yeah.
So you ready to go ahead and wrap?
Yeah, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap. We have our Friday night that we do it. We do a long video on Fridays. We kind of get everything off our chest that we had going on during the week, and then we also kind of preview the game that's coming up. We got an early one. We playing Sunday at 12. So
The JV schedule.
yeah, we playing the JV schedule with our JV team because you know, a lot of people ain't even playing. Zach Martin not playing. I think we might get Nealon back. Bland not playing. Jordan Lewis, I don't think Jordan Lewis playing. I don't know. It's a lot of people that's not playing. So it's gonna be a good
They
game.
gonna play everybody.
They gonna play everybody, and I think it's still gonna be a good game. It's gonna be one of them games where it's still gonna be. I think it'll be 6-7 going into the half, but I don't know. I've been wrong so many times this year. We might get blew out. So I don't know, but we'll stay tuned, and we in it for the long haul. So y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
Peace. And do our check our Facebook page out.
Yeah, Generation Cowboys and Sports Talks Facebook. Just make sure you go on our Facebook and hit the follow button, and also hit the notification bell down here, just so you can see when every time that we post, it'll pop up for you. So y'all have a good one. Peace.
Peace.